back, and I still have what I think I would call auditory dyslexia. I hear people say words that I know they flat out did not say, but it sounds hilarious.
Oh my God. Well, I hope I don't get that. I have trouble enough already.
But if you ask me to repeat what you said, it's truly my brain is just not decoding words right. I know we have everyone here, but I don't think we can call the meeting to order till 1 o'clock, right?
That is accurate. Yep. And I think I said in my email that Cassie will not be joining us today. She won't be joining us until November. She's on leave.
Okay.
She said, boy, get this rules thing done before I come back, because this is painful.
She just didn't want to see your computer do all those funny colors again and go bonkers.
Well, I'm hoping it doesn't happen again. We'll see.
And it's 1 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll be looking for motion to approve the minutes from August 28th.
I make a motion.
And any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. And we have passed it. All right, Code of Conduct rules. Continue to review the Code of Conduct rules as suggested by the Act 56 committee. So we should be in the adopted rules attachment, Kim?
Yes, the attachment that says adopted rules with track changes, and I think it had yesterday's date on it.
And we're what, Rule 28? Yeah. Or were we gonna try to do a
we want to do 22 first or no?
I just scrolled quick. I don't.
Zipped right past 22.
No, we have a ride second. So 22. What's 22? No, that will be next.
Oh, okay.
According to our agenda.
Got it. Sorry.
But I think we do want to go to Rule 23 for training waivers.
For the Code of Conduct discussion?
Nope, you're right, Kim. See? We're just making sure that you are doing good.
Okay, that's a little clarity test. Yep, where we left off last time was in Rule 28. After the discussion about Nexus, it seemed like the committee was okay leaving the language as is. Mm-hmm. But when we were leaving the meeting, there was a request to change potentially the language about voting, the 2/3 voting, like whether or not the wording of 2/3 meant what we wanted it to mean. And I believe Justin had suggested, would we want to put in like the actual number of votes, which right now would be 16, 2/3 of the 24, or would we not want to put a number since if our council size changed in the future, we would then have to go and amend that. I did a little research, and I believe Mark had looked this up back in the Act 56 subcommittee group when we wrote the language entire council, that in Robert's rules, the entire council, when you use that wording, it does mean that the votes needed it's the math according to the entire council. It doesn't mean the entire council needs to be present. It doesn't mean that anyone can throw off the vote by not showing up. It just means their vote wouldn't count as a yes if they don't show up. So in effect, the way we have it written would mean there would need to be 16 affirmative votes to change the code. So I sent that language to you all. Just think, you may not want it to be that. We may want to discuss whether that's the right approach. The Act 56 subcommittee's thoughts were, we really do want to elevate this and make sure that any change requires more than a majority. You could use majority of the entire council, but that keeps us at
12,
13,
right? Yeah.
12, sorry, 13.
Yeah.
I personally like the idea of the higher vote count. I think it gives, I guess the only question would be, with the vote of 16, I don't think we run into, the sort of tyranny of the minority. I don't think one or two could hold things up with that, but I think that's would be the only worry. So just maybe for us to talk through that. But so a long way around, I think the language is okay the way it is. If the thought is that we would need 16 as a minimum to change the code. And again, it would have to be voted on twice, the way we currently have it set up. So that's where we had left off in our rules discussion. And then you all were going to, your homework was for the week was to see if there were any other sections that you either wanted to change or add.
Yeah, so Kim, I appreciated the research you did, and as you know, I'm a big Robert's Rules nerd, and I'm reading it right now. I think some of the research that you illustrated in your email included the goals of Robert Rules, which is to permit the majority to do things, but also protect minorities, which I think is consistent with what the Act 56 committee was basically looking to accomplish. Not speaking for them, just my view of it. The specific calling in Robert's Rules, one is 2/3 of the entire membership. One is supermajority, which discusses 2/3 of the entire membership, or 3/4. And ultimately, it doesn't really open the door for the, as you illustrated in your email, it doesn't open the door for the, I don't like this, so I'm leaving, so they can't do something. I think Robert's Rules is, especially in its 12th edition, is pretty well thoughtful on protecting the balanced interests of those. And with something as important of this, I mean, really what we were modeling it on is the same way the Constitution is amended by the Senate, which requires 2/3 of the entire membership of the Senate, which is 20 senators. So I think just for future proofing this, saying 2/3 of my preference is 2/3 of the entire body or membership or entire council, or however that's worded as appropriate, is consistent with gravitational changes, especially if the legislature were to change our membership either. I mean, they could even say we're going to go down to 11. And now we have a problematic thing where we say we need to change our code of conduct, but we're going through LCAR, ICAR. So I like the language with those comments.
I'm good with it.
Sir,
My only comment, and I'm just scrolling quickly because I didn't think to do this beforehand. And please don't think I'm actually this particular, but I am currently. I'll just say I've been in a lot of communication lately with HR, so that ought to fill you in as to where my mindset is. Is there any other place where we reference something similar to this that doesn't, where we're not sort of implying Robert's Rules? Is my only question. Because if we're inferring it or implying it in this section and we're not somewhere else, that could cause us, in my mind, cause issues. But I don't know if that exists at all. That's the only, and I haven't found anything. So
Vermont law prescribes Robert's Rules as the de facto set of
Okay,
rules,
perfect.
unless superseded by state law. So that's it's pretty standard in that regard. And
So we don't have
council is
anywhere where
governed
we
by
just-
Robert's Rules.
Okay, so we don't have anywhere where we just say majority or anything like that in any of these rules.
We do.
Oh, we do.
We up in and so to one Mark's point, yeah, the fallback, unless we could create rules that supersede Robert's Rules.
Yeah.
you know, if we want, and, but otherwise, if it's silent, the default is Robert's rules unless
it.
statute says otherwise, or our rules say otherwise. In Rule 4, in meetings, that's where we talk about the need for quorum and that it's a majority for essentially any of our binding action on council business.
Yep.
And the way that sentence is written is that default of the majority of votes, like
Okay.
who shows up that day, as long as you meet quorum, the vote's the majority, that's how we pass
Okay.
all binding action. So by us calling it out specifically for the code of conduct that it requires a 2/3, right? Like that's showing all of our other action, as far as binding action of the council requires just a majority. And we're making a specific distinction that the code of conduct is treated differently. You know, now as far as like, there's different rules in Robert's rules about, you know, when motions are tabled or, you know, that is different, majority, 2/3. We don't have to worry about that. Robert's rules covers that, but we're saying in here, all of our actions require majority, but code of conduct requires 2/3.
Yeah, good. No, that's fine. As long as you're all happy that you're a lawyer, so I trust you to be happy with it. Or I trust that if you're happy with it, it's good.
No, and to your point, Justin, the other day, I was going back through just to see, you know, how we said it before, for our general work. So it was a good question. And just to make sure, you know, there wasn't something else in here that we were contradicting. That's also something that, when we get to LCAR, you know, if they take issue with how we worded that 2/3 thing, they'll bring that up to us. But I do think the way it's worded is appropriate and works.
So, Kim, my general experience with Robert's rules is in municipal meetings, and I just Googled it, and I'm finding Title I and Title III do not actually specify Robert's rules.
Oh, in our title of the
Title
Vermont
I.
statutes.
Yes. So Title I being general provisions and Title III being executive. They actually don't specify. It's Title 24, and so I might actually be wrong in saying Vermont says it will always be Robert's rules since we're a state body. So I would say the intent of our original rules committee when this version of rules was created was follow Robert's rules. It may be worthy of us to include that in like chapter 1 or somewhere thereabouts.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or in Rule 4 in meetings.
Say Rule 4 makes sense, right?
To add a sentence in there.
Because almost everything was guided by Robert's rules when we did it, because that's pretty standard unless we create a higher standard.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I feel like it is said somewhere, but maybe it's just.
And that just may be a poor search that I did in the legislature's website.
You know, it could be, I could be thinking of like Secretary of State, like guidance document or something on open meeting law, something like that,
yeah.
And not the actual statute. That would be something I can just double check.
And if we need to put it in 4, it's not that big of a deal, right?
No, that's an easy, that's an easy add. You know, to say,
well, we're on 4. Can I just ask one more question? G does not say of members present. It just says of members authorized to vote.
Correct.
So does that not fall into the, how is that different than saying 2/3 of the council? Because that says a majority of the council members, but if I'm just, is 13, I guess 13 the majority? Is that how that works?
13's a majority of the council because we're a 24-member
So that's
body.
why that works, because it's a majority. Okay, all right, I got it.
But
I'm
the
tracking
problem
now.
that G sub I is solving is that the council's quorum is 13, but for professional regulation issues,
Yep.
the professional regulation committee can't do anything in the executive session. And so
Right.
we ran into quorum issues where we might have like maybe 16 members present for the hearing or meeting,
Got it. Okay.
and 4 of them have to walk out.
Yep.
So that's why the quorum changes to 9 for those hearings.
Makes sense. Okay, I'm tracking now. I'm happy. Sorry, it takes me a minute. Maybe I have COVID.
So-
Peter, just before we go to you, Kim, do we need to separately warn changing Rule 4 since that's not on our agenda? Is that future business?
That's a good question.
I think just for practicality's sake, if you're not confident in the answer, then we should probably just do it, and
Yeah.
we could do that next week.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. And it's, yeah, either way, it's just neater that way. I mean, it'll be all in the full package to get approved by the council, but yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Peter?
So I'm reading further down and under the section V of amendments, and I know it's Roman numerals and I screwed that up, but that's okay. I guess that's 5. What's a friendly and what's a not friendly amendment? I don't know what that means.
Do you want the lay version or the legal version?
Either one.
Do you want me to take it, Kim?
Yes, sir, go for it.
So in short, let's say that I make a motion to approve the minutes for August 27th, 2024. You second it, and then Justin says, no, we're doing August 28th. He can make a friendly amendment, which I say, yep, I made a mistake. I agree. The person who seconds it can say, I agree. And then we can continue on as if that was the formal motion. Let's say Justin and I hate each other. And so I say, no, I'm not accepting that. He can make a motion to amend my motion, which is then considered as a separate issue, which can then be voted on by the full body.
All right.
So obviously minutes are not contentious, but we
No,
can pick a
that
topic
makes
that
sense.
becomes.
So if somebody makes a motion to make a change, and then somebody tries to tack something on that people are objecting to, then it becomes an unfriendly. Okay.
Yeah, and you can think of it as like the change, substantially changes the original motion. Like often a friendly amendment is some language change, like a better word, but the kind of that purpose of the motion remains intact. It's like a little cleanup sometimes, but someone might say they're doing a friendly amendment, but they're really changing like what will come out of the motion. Then, the person who originally made the motion can say, no, I don't accept that. And then you're in another category.
Any other questions, areas for discussion? Any cautions, Kim, before I entertain a motion to vote on Rule 28?
Any cautions?
That sounds like you're setting a lawyer up for a fall there. Let me tell you, she didn't caution me.
Yeah.
I
For
guess what I
record,
want to
the
say
lawyer
is
has
any areas that
COVID.
you made a comment on that we're not considering because we're just going to vote.
No,
Okay.
I do not have any additional things that I think you need to consider at this time.
And so just to be clear on Rule 28 sub FI3, the one that says vote, are we going with the language requires a 2/3 majority of the entire council to pass? Is that the language you are recommending?
I think that language is sufficient. Is it?
Especially with the clarification in Rule 4, once we get to that.
Yeah, and just to note, that is the same language as then later in the second motion, because again, it's voted on twice. So those mirror each other slightly further down. So I think that language is clear. I think it's clear in that if down the road somebody questioned what it meant, I think Robert's rules are clear about what it means. So if questioned, and to Chief Hull's point, we'll be able to button it up that we are following Robert's rules and just have that clear. Yes, I think that works. And again, if LCAR wants us to word that slightly differently, but have the same meaning, they'll tell us.
Cool. Then I will entertain a motion that we approve. Rule
Recommend.
That we recommend.
Sure. I'll make a
that-
motion that we recommend this section is as we've modified it, or I don't know how to word that, but
Good enough for me. I'll second it.
Yeah, I think in the end that the only change has been that reverse of the section up top. So there's, a few small edits, but so you could say to motion to recommend Rule 28 as edited by the Rules Committee.
that's my motion.
That's my second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Right.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Yay!
Adopted for recommendation, Rule 28.
Thank you.
So now to Rule A-Ride rule.
Yeah, that's 22, right? Yeah.
22 and 23.
All right, so let's do 22 first. Any issues with the sub for K9 teams? Which is just to give it its own heading as a specialized training standard. Cool, let's go to A-Ride. Any law enforcement officer completes the NHTSA DUI SFST class shall successfully complete A-Ride within 3 years of completion from the DUI SFST class. Any law enforcement officer has successfully completed DRE training or the equivalent is not required to take A-Ride. Council may on its own through the establishment of one or more committees, blah, blah, blah. Just a question, Kim, should that section forward, the council may on its own, should that be separated into sub C?
That should be, yes, exactly. So when we inserted B, that should be now C. So I will do that.
Any issues with sub B while Kim's working on the formatting?
So we basically were going to remove any language around a waiver and just leave it up to the waiver committee.
Let's put a pin in the waiver conversation until we go down to Rule 23. Unless you feel it's
the only reason I asked is,
relevant.
wasn't that in this language before?
No.
Oh, it wasn't? Oh,
no,
okay.
We split it up into the two rules. That here's the rule for A-Ride training, that the requirement, and then we move the waiver language into the training waiver rule.
Okay.
I think the reason you're conflating the two is because that was the Chiefs and Sheriff's recommendation.
Gotcha.
And we felt it made better sense in our rules to separate them.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Because I was like, man, I know I saw that as one thing somewhere.
Yeah.
So basically this says everyone has to do it, and we'll address who doesn't have to do it in Rule 23. Is that a fair assessment, Kim? Okay. Any further comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none. I'll entertain a motion to recommend the adoption of Rule 22 as drafted to the council.
So moved.
Justin got that one.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Right.
Opposed, say nay. We've recommended Rule 22.
Hey,
So
Pete,
Rule
did you
20
see that real quick? That was a learning opportunity. Mark read the verbiage. Kim gave the thumbs up, and I just said, so moved. And then you don't have to respit the whole thing. It works out great as a motion.
All right, so Rule 23, I guess technically sub H, we're just renumbering, but any issues with renumbering sub H?
I think it's I.
I'm showing a track changes for sub H. Before we,
Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. Yes, sorry. That H is correct.
all right, hearing nothing on that, we'll just move on to I. Council's waiver committee may, in limited circumstances, grant an officer indefinite waiver. Upon issuing an indefinite waiver, the waiver committee must outline the circumstances to support the granting of an indefinite waiver, and the committee must inform the officer what actions would void an indefinite waiver. Which by my recollection of our last meeting, that kind of cleans up the circumstances which we were concerned about without having to get into the nitty-gritty within our rule. But then we also have to communicate to the waiver committee how we would expect them to exercise judiciously how to use this rule. Because I also think a concern with ICAR, LCAR, and I don't know which one is more appropriate or relevant, but I know with waivers, they don't, as part of the APA, and Kim cleaned this up when I screw it up, they don't want there to be like a generalized process of waiving things.
Without it being in a rule.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Like if
it
there's
should be the
something you
one-offs.
routinely do, yeah, exactly. If it's routinely done, that's when like a process, grows up and becomes a rule. If it's something that regularly is happening. Exactly. And this language here, just to remind everyone, because it's been 2 meetings, is new language to look at, with the idea that we didn't need to have an A-RIDE specific waiver if we address this issue of indefinite waiver in general, and that the A-RIDE waiver would fall into this, and that some of the language that we had played around with earlier would be the language that would guide the waiver committee. As far as what does traffic enforcement mean? What are the vehicles? What are the vessels? All of that language. Currently we pulled out of here and we could put in guidance. So I don't know how folks feel about this idea.
Well, because it establishes something beyond A-RIDE, because there's other things people get waivers for. So that makes sense to me.
Did you say the in limited circumstances language was to appease LCAR or ICAR? Or no?
Yeah, but this is me just like making stuff up when I'm writing these things, to be very honest. Well, and what I was trying to capture there, and we may get pushback on this, is I think folks should naturally pause at, what do you mean an indefinite waiver? Like that, and when we talked about it a few meetings ago, I think all of our brains were thinking about like, well, we wouldn't want, any of the mandatory trainings, like, can you have an indefinite, like when can you not have it? Like, are we gonna define that? And so I didn't want to get into that when I was writing this to present to you. But I did want to capture that it should be unusual to have an indefinite waiver, right? And still be a certified law enforcement officer. Like there must be some pretty unusual circumstances. And that was the best I came up with.
Just a thought, and this is just stream of conscious. Would it make sense to say, and I qualify this on the basis that our committee has to care about the APA and LCAR ICAR? The waiver committee is tangential to probably the thought processes there. Would it make sense to say the council's waiver committee may, in limited circumstances, based on guidance from the rules committee, which then kind of says it creates more work for us and more work for them, which I'm not intentional on, but also their thought process isn't going to be, are we creating that repeated process that grows up into a rule?
I think that would be, I think that would be strange that the waiver committee would need to check in on with the rules committee about something that's not in the rules. Like, if it's like, I think the waiver committee, if they're doing something regularly, can send a suggestion to the rules committee, like, hey, we're seeing this all the time. We think there needs to be a rule about it, right? That would be one scenario, but I wouldn't want the rules committee, I think, can help interpret the rules, helps create them.
Question about them.
Yeah, but if they had a question about it, yeah, but I don't think we need to write that into rules, that waiver committee. Like, I think if you start making a two-part system here that you need to check into the rules committee, I think that gets a little strange.
I don't think it's so, I'm not suggesting a check-in, but more like we're going to push information their way, because that's what we've been saying is like, we're giving them this discretion, but there's a lot of thought behind why we're giving them this discretion that is clean from our perspective. As written right now, it's also intentional on a bunch of trust, as opposed to, we're going to just give an exception for firearms because it's our buddy.
Yeah, but so I think, Mark, I hear you, but think about how that really works. First of all, it's going to go through a department head, whether it's a sheriff or a chief. They're training people, and then the waiver committee, who has, stake in that game as well. They don't want to waive somebody who's a liability. I think that we have to trust the process enough to say all these people, well, one piece of it may or may not have the greatest of integrity. Overall, they're going to have enough integrity to do it the right way. I don't know. I just don't think it should be so cumbersome that it's it hurts its function.
And I'm not challenging that. I sometimes like to look at these in extremes to say, like, how could it be exploited? Because I also think it comes back to public trust of the council, which is why I offer the question, not saying we need to do anything with it. I just think it's valuable to explore.
No, I hear you. But it's public trust on several different groups, right?
Yeah.
Seth, I'll be right back, folks. Keep talking. I'll be literally 30 seconds.
Well, he's doing that. I have two questions. Does anybody, who signs off on the waivers that the committee grants? Is it the executive director? Or does nobody sign off on them? It's just the committee grants them and they're done?
I always have to check.
I believe the
rules.
committee grants. In fact, the committee overrules the executive director. But I'm not sure if we direct the executive director to sign something on our behalf or if.
Yeah, let me
I'm on that committee too, so that's why I'm saying we.
Well, no, I'm on it with you too. That's why I'm not sure.
It's so it's in training waivers. The council's waiver committee shall have the authority to review requests for waivers from annual in-service. Executive director shall have the authority to review. I don't think our rules actually says like who grants it, but that's weird.
Is there any? And I'm just spitballing here. And the only reason I don't want to say like I don't like it, Kim, like it's bad. I just, in limited circumstances, I just feel like that gives potential for people to. I don't like it. Sorry. I'm just,
No, I have no attachment to
Sorry.
things that I
Okay.
write, Justin. Like you
But-
really,
well, I didn't want to offend, especially since you're ill
like
and on the
zero
meeting.
attachment. I'll let you know when anything's precious to me. This is not.
Perfect.
So-
Perfect. And I'll work better at my language. I'm just curious, would we want to consider saying the council's waiver committee, with approval of the executive director, may grant officers indefinite waivers? And that then means any indefinite waiver that the committee approves has to be signed off by the executive director as a secondary, because as you pointed out, indefinite waivers should happen in very limited circumstances, this being about the only one that I can think of. However, in the future, there may be additional, I don't know, like some sort of training that road officers do that executives aren't doing that won't necessarily be prescribed. And so maybe it's like, who knows, doesn't matter what. So would that potentially be a way of capturing that this is a more exceptional waiver by adding a level? Just a thought.
Yeah, that essentially it goes through two gates, the waiver committee and the executive director, and making that clear. Absolutely.
But I'll also play devil's advocate there. If we have an executive director who is not good at transacting business, we could have things hit the wall just
Fair
because
point.
it's,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah, that's true.
versus the council, which we actually have in 23 sub D, a direction of it going to the council for its review. But I think back to the point of our rules don't really say who signs the waiver. I mean, everyone's reviewing it,
interesting.
seems. There's
Yeah,
no,
that's interesting language there that I never really thought
Yeah.
about. But that is true, Mark, as well, that the gate could be the council as a whole. That again, this is a limited situation. The waiver committee would bring it to the council, and the council would approve these indefinite waivers.
and maybe this isn't the portion that goes in the rule, but this is the conversation with the waiver committee saying, we're giving you this rule that lets you do this thing. Our concerns are that this could turn into something else, and so we would encourage this be an opportunity to use sub D.
And one thing to think about, if on this committee level, you don't want to necessarily make that call. Like you can either decide, yes, like Mark said, the discretion could be with the waiver committee if they want to bump it up to the council, or you could recommend that has to go to the council. Or when you present this section to the council, you could put both options out there. Like, what would the council like, and have the council decide on this. If you feel like, this is, if you don't feel strongly either way, or if the committee's split on this, you could always offer sort of a menu to the council to decide on.
So we're
Peter?
suggesting that this is their option, right? They don't have to, because I just would hate to see the waiver committee interpreting it that then they have to bump it to the whole council. The council then has to vote on Mark Anderson indefinite waiver for a ride. I mean, I just think that defeats the process. It makes it so cumbersome that I'd rather send my people to the ride.
Right.
I would
Right.
almost suspect that the council would say, okay, we have these 30 waivers for a ride because they're people who don't do traffic ops. They're people who are administrators. And so we pass all 30. I would assume that would be the process. I'm just a member of the council, and I don't know how the chair would want to handle that, but that would seem expeditious. But nonetheless, I hear you.
Well, state government's always expeditious, so.
Hey,
We had
our
a
meeting was
38-minute
very
meeting
fast
today.
today. Yeah, it was like the fastest meeting we've ever had today. Very expeditious.
Well, one other question I know we had kicked around, still on this topic, but slightly different, was that I don't see anywhere where it says that Officer Joe Schmo can't just submit their own waiver for permanent exemption. And I know we talked about making sure that these waivers for permanent, or the permanent waivers came from executives. And I don't know if that language just didn't copy over, if there was a reason it dropped off.
I think it might just be inform a process. The waiver is signed by an agency head.
Oh, for the committee. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you're right, Justin. We did have that language
Yep.
in, and then when I took out sort of all the A-RIDE specific
Yep.
things, thinking,
Okay.
oh, this is more process, like how this should be, that would be in the,
Yep.
you know, on the sheet, you know, that you need your agency heads to sign off.
Right. Yep. That makes sense. Gotcha.
Mhm.
Thanks.
So since Rule 23 is in our warned agenda, do we want to clean up the issue? And maybe I'm digressing here, but do we want to clean up the issue of everyone's reviewing and include in sub A, B,
To
or
review
D,
and approve.
review and approve?
Mhm.
We also have a member of the public with us. Jen Frank is here.
Only if you need me, because you asked at the last meeting. Other than that, I will sit quietly.
Well, we have exciting news, member of the public.
Share.
Rule 28 was recently approved by this esteemed committee and will be moving along. So you're welcome to stay, but we've handled that part of the agenda.
Roger that. Signing off.
Hmm.
Do we
So
want to
I'm
follow
just
my
gonna-
digression or stick around on I?
I guess what's your digression? Because like A and B are different, right? Because the council's over 60, the director's under, or the committee, sorry, is over. The director's under. The committee can extend. So those three things don't seem to be in conflict with each other. It's a little odd, but they don't seem to be in conflict.
They're definitely not in conflict. Mark was pointing out, we were just sort of laughing that the language is to review the waivers and it doesn't actually
Right.
say approve.
Gotcha.
And so he's like, while we're here, should we,
Gotcha.
since
Okay.
in I,
Gotcha. Yeah.
right, in I, we're using the word grant.
Gotcha.
So we could be, whether we use approve or grant, to be consistent, that this might be an opportunity just to clean that up a little bit.
I like the word approve personally, and I think we should add approve to at least A and B, if not other appropriate places.
Let's go like really good. Let's go like bestow.
I crave approval. I like approval.
Bequeath. How about bequeath?
Bequeath.
You know, that's a good word.
Yeah. I like it.
You've been with HR too long.
I tell you what, you're lucky this is only as punchy as I am after the way this morning went.
Goodness.
Oh.
Okay. Well, okay, so just so folks know what I'm doing on my end, in sub A, I just added after review, so it says shall have the authority to review and approve
Mhm.
is added. In B, to review and approve requests, so and approve was added. And then Mark, where was the other?
A and B for sure.
Mm-hmm.
C
And then
kind of
the
works because of the way it's
Yeah,
written.
it's requesting an to extend, and so that I think that's clear that the waiver committee can.
Do you want to? Is it unnecessary to add it to D?
I think it's necessary or consistent at least.
Okay.
So the waiver committee executive director may refer a waiver request to the council for its review and approval.
or
Yeah.
approval.
Or,
don't know.
or just take out review and go
Yeah.
with for its approval. Yeah, that's smart. Smarter for its approval. And then in I just changed the word grant to approve, just to keep the language consistent.
So I guess I don't like the language, but I guess that I'm not really seeing absent involving more people, which I take Mark's point as valid that may not always be a viable option. That maybe I just worry that someone could set circumstance. I don't know, could interject. It seems like it has potential openness there, but maybe that's just me being overly cautious. It does
Well,
certainly give the indication that it's not happening all the time, which I think is what you wanted.
and to your point, I mean, it can be taken out. It doesn't, because the language itself doesn't then set those limited circumstances, so it can be removed. And then I think, the advice to the waiver committee is, if you're seeing something, where you feel like the waiver committee want more rules, like give us more guidance, like this, we feel like we have too much leeway here, right? Then we go back and amend the rules. That these are always changeable if we need to. But the in limited circumstances doesn't need to be there. That was.
Maybe the solution to this is really awareness. The waiver committee, maybe sub J now, or maybe an extension of I, the waiver committee shall report out annually on indefinite waivers issued.
Like an annual report, just so that we can see what's being, so the council at large can see what's being requested.
I mean, I really think that it's just the awareness item that we're really kicking around is how do we know when this happens? What controls are there? And if this committee became aware that we granted 900 waivers for use of force, we need rules.
Right. Right. And to that point, right, that the stream of it would be, the report would be made to the council. The council would be like, whoa, why isn't this in our rules? And then you would have a directive to get on that.
All members of the waiver committee get full waivers, so that might get some attention too.
That might raise an eyebrow in a minute.
I'll also throw out Rule 8, kind of coming back to our conversation about the forms approved, includes forms approved by the council. So I think the council approves the forms that we use, which is where we solved the agency head problem.
Oh, yep.
But not to digress into Rule 8.
Okay. Now that you just said that, what about D in Rule 8? The executive director does that then, I'm just wondering if that then conflicts with any of the other ones where we're just going back and forth on.
No, so, I mean, obviously Kim is the expert here, but my recollection of Rule 8 is the council has rules. So originally the waiver committee was just for training. That's what it was originally embodied in. This goes back to the Criminal Justice Training Council. The committee was disbanded because it almost seemed to just be a rubber stamp of what the executive director was dealing with. It was reformed back in, I think, 2019 or 2020 or 21. I'm not sure the timeline there, but somewhere thereabouts. But also the rules committee expanded the waiver committee's authority to waive other rules, because there would be times where it's like, what do we do about, I can't give an example, but what do we do about when we have a rule waiver? Like any of the enumerated rules that we have here, like our council was reformed. This actually happened. Our council was reformed with more members, and our quorum said we could meet with like 8 people. We're going to waive that. And so we kind of operated in a gray zone as a council saying, well, we haven't adopted our new rules yet. So we're operating under our old rules, except
With a
what's
waiver.
been severed by Vermont law. But it was never clear who was making the decision or how that decision was being transacted. It just happened. So the intentionality of Rule 8 was to say we're going to have a committee that deals with these things and the council will ultimately approve them since they are the council's rules. And that's a pretty significant thing to say we're going to waive, I don't know, a fee schedule, which would be detrimental to the academy operations, or we're going to waive entry standards because we just feel like it. So it's separate from the training waivers, which is the section we're on right now,
Gotcha.
in that context. But I just noticed it while I was scanning for a different portion, the portion about the council adopting forms.
Yeah, so Rule 8 exactly is pertaining to waiving any of our rules within this whole stack of rules. And then there's the training waivers. But to Mark's point, Rule 8, any of those potential waivers to our rules, we are utilizing the waiver committee in that, and that's what those subsections are about.
In a similar context to the rules committee, where the council, we're recommending these rules to the council's going to vote to adopt or change or whatever. The waiver committee is doing the same thing to the council.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Any further conversation on I?
So just to clarify quickly, that idea of an annual report, would you want that as a subsection to I? Like it would oddly be I, little I, but that's fine. There or as or J?
Or alternatively, just another sentence in I.
Or, okay, with that. Keep it all
I'm
together.
okay with an additional sentence, but I will put no fight if somebody feels differently.
I don't think it makes any difference either way.
Okay. I like it.
And are we eliminating in limited? Are we eliminating in limited circumstances, or are we keeping that? I don't remember where we landed. I might have been the only one that had issue with it too. Which
I
is
like
fine.
your argument though, which is that it's kind of gray. But I also like Kim's statement of maybe that's good to give to Elcar saying we want this to be unusual.
Mhm.
I'm indifferent. Peter?
I'm not strong feelings either way. I think the inference is these are not going to be the standard. This is a rare circumstance. The majority of officers in Vermont, if we're talking about A-Ride, are going to have to take A-Ride. There's a very small number who would qualify for this.
I guess I'm just wondering, is it possible? So in the first year, there's going to be potentially how many departments / agencies are in there? There's possibly going to be over 100 of these waivers for A-Ride, potentially. And could some special interest group take exception to that and try and make an issue out of it if it says that this is in limited circumstances and there's 100 in some of these things? Is my only thought. But
I thought of it that way.
That was kind of where I was going. This is like when this thing first rolls out, there's going to be a whole bunch of these, I would presume.
I think the counter to that off the top of my head is that in limited circumstances is pertaining to the this type of waiver, not necessarily the volume of it. You know, like I think that would be an easy, straight face explanation of, you know, this is limited and out of the gate, we have a number of these, and then thereafter, would be a trickle.
And that's fine. I am not standing in the way of this. I'm just sort of spitballing what's in my brain about why I'm sort of tripped up on that one. But I am not like, this has to go. So
Yep.
The other option that Kim already mentioned is we could offer that as a menu item to the council saying, we weren't in love with these 3 words. We didn't hate these 3 words. We have recommended it, including or excluding these 3 words. And
Yeah.
I think if Kim's fine with it and you two are indifferent, I'd say just leave it in there because I'm not, like I said, I'm not pounding my fist. And I think given options, the council will debate those longer than anything else. That'd be my only thought.
so let's leave it in there and call it out in the report out to the council.
Okay. Leave it in there. So I'm gonna unstrike. Okay. And then just some help wording on the last sentence, because again, I'm not working at close to 100%. The waiver committee will provide the council an annual report. I just need the next little bit of that sentence. Reviewing indefinite waiver requests.
Of the indefinite waiver requests that were granted in that calendar year.
Do you want only the ones granted or all the requests so that, because you'd want to see the requests, whether they were granted or not, possibly, or no? Or
I
would
don't
you
know
only
if-
want granted?
As a waiver committee member, I don't think I would care about anything that was denied. As a rules committee member, I don't think I'd care about anything that was denied because I think anyone would become interested is when the agency applies for an appeal, which then is going to bring it to their attention anyways. If it's denied, it's denied. If somebody wants to lobby for a rule change, we'll hear about it. I think that there's sufficient process to deal with the denied ones. And our concern that we've discussed so far has been the granted ones that if the circumstance arose where this section or this rule was abused, we may want to craft new rules.
Okay, so the way the sentence reads right now is the waiver committee will provide the council an annual report of the indefinite waivers granted in a calendar year.
Should it be will or shall? Am I being too pedantic?
I think will and shall, same for this. Unless we want it bequeathed to the.
That would be a fun
Justin's gonna
inside
get,
joke.
he's like, his one thing on this subcommittee will be to get that word in the rules somewhere. That's his goal. That's his annual goal.
That's right. That's my goal. I'm going to make that my goal.
So with I re-edited, are we comfortable with it?
I'm sorry. Can you just read it one more time, Kim? I apologize.
No, that's fine. And I can, would you like me to screen share it so that you
Oh,
can
sure.
read
That'd be
it?
great. Yeah, that'd be fine. Thanks.
Do that. So a little easier. I know I wouldn't be able to just listen and do that. Just give me 1 second to remember how to do this. Oh, view. Oh, there it is. Gosh, I'm really slow. Gosh.
You have an excuse, though. It's okay.
I know, but it's brutal. It's killing me. Okay. Hopefully you can see the red language there. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Must inform an officer of what actions, or should it be circumstances?
I think circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah.
which could be actions.
Right, circumstances kind of covers more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Thank you.
And Kim, do we have the changes to sub, what was it? A, B, D?
Yep.
Oh yeah, approval and approval and approval.
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion on Rule 23? If not, I'd be entertaining a motion that we recommend Rule 23 to the council for consideration.
Go for it, Pete.
I'll make that motion.
There it is. Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, say nay. We passed it unanimously, and we have accomplished our business for the day. We have no members of the public aside from the council attorney. Kim, anything you want to say?
Thank you. That's all I want to say. Thank you so much for getting this done today. This is great.
And so with this work concluded, Kim, do we need to meet? We do need to meet next week to talk about Rule 4.
Let me stop sharing. Yes, if we can meet next week, we'll notice Rule 4. And that'll give me just enough time. I do want to double check. I feel like it is written somewhere. So the Robert's Rules thing, it's kind of killing my brain. But I like the idea of just why not? Like, this is our chance to neaten that up. And that'll also just help in our general explanation to the council about the rules.
I will be on the way home from Virginia no, where am I going to be? Wednesday. I'm going to be in Middlebury all day for the council review of the curriculum thing.
All right.
So I think we said in our last meeting, Wednesday next week did not work for us, and we didn't really put an invite out.
Right. I
Do
could
we,
do,
like
I can
Tuesday?
do Friday.
I can't do Friday. I
Okay.
can't do Thursday.
And I'm in Virginia Sunday to Tuesday.
And we won't have a quorum with either one of us gone. So
We got to move it to the week after. Oh crap, that's firearms.
Yeah, I can't do the 18th.
16.
I could do 16 depending on time.
I can do the 16th.
Kim, do you know if we're gonna have a council hearing on this? Oh, I'm sorry, 16th. Never mind. So 16th worth. 16
Yes.
works for people.
Depending on the time, yes.
I can do pretty much any time.
I'm wide open, so Justin, it's really your.
All right, either after between 9:30 and noon, or after 2.
I prefer earlier, quite frankly.
Kim, what does your schedule look like?
For the 16th, right now the morning is oddly open, so whatever
do
time.
9:30.
Sure. And then, are you all comfortable, the Rules Subcommittee, because I would like the council to hopefully approve your recommendation on the 17th. So I'd like to circulate Rule 28 with the council within a few days. And I will put a note in there that there's, one more potential rule to consider, the Rule 4 edition. I won't go into it with the council in email, but I can't wait until the 16th to have Rule 4 sorted out to get the information out. Are you all comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll just share the Rule 28. And then as soon as we meet on the 16th at 9:30, assuming you all approve that edit, I can then just add an update, and that's, I think, fairly easy for folks to digest in 24 hours. Great. Would you like me, since you approved the A-RIDE, should we just put them both on for approval for the 17th? Just get it all, yeah. Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe just for the open meeting purposes, say we're contemplating a minor change to Rule 4, which will be, or it's expected to be approved on Monday and circulated at the conclusion of the meeting.
Yes, for the agenda, that for the 17th. Yes, that's a great point. Yep. Okay. Great.
And Kim, I guess just for process, I understand Cassie's gone till November. Should we still invite her to the meeting as a member, or is this just junk email?
So I started to invite her when I was sending out the documents yesterday, and her out of office specifically said, like, I'm not looking at email until I get back. So then I just didn't invite her because I figured that's just more accumulating for her. But if the subcommittee feels differently, I figured we can just catch her up when she gets back.
I don't think she'll be offended.
I don't think so.
And if she is, I will own it. And then
Yeah,
she
I
can have her
can't
chair back.
imagine the email that would be there after being out on leave, so.
Peter, what's your email?
It's peter.hull, Hull, at Colchester, pdvt.org.
Cool.
And the meeting, that 4 is just to add the Robert's Rules thing, or the part about adding to 4 is just adding the part that we're following Robert's Rules.
Mhm.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that should be easy.
Cool. That's sent. Looking, unless anybody else wants to say anything, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank y'all. Hope you feel
Thank you
better,
so
Kim.
much.
Kim,
Thank you.
better,
See
and
ya.
Kim, Pete. It's not Chief Hull, it's Pete.
Oh, well, oh, Pete, wow. Maybe I can get to Peter. We'll see what we can do. I think I called you Peter a few
Whatever.
meetings ago, and then I got off and I was like, what
No,
did I
it's
do?
fine. All right. See you guys
All right.
later.
See y'all.
Bye.
Bye.